Son of a millionaire bites the maid. But what she did next will haunt you forever. It was a scandal that rattled the quiet town of Oakwood. The opulent mansion leaned ominously at the end of Maple Street, casting shadows over the hearts of its residents. Inside those walls, secrets thrived like weeds in a neglected garden, but nothing prepared anyone for the chaotic night that would unravel everything. What started as an evening of elegance turned to horror. As laughter echoed off the marble floors, young Julian Mercer, the golden child of a multi-millionaire dynasty, had suddenly struck. In a fit of bewildering rage, he'd lunged at Grace, the family's timid maid, biting her shoulder as if she were the fiercest enemy. Gasps filled the room. Eyes widened. Was it madness? A mere drunk mistake? The party froze, the air thick with confusion and disbelief. As screams of shock pierced the eerie stillness, Grace didn't break. Instead, she held her ground, staring back at Julian with a peculiar mix of defiance and hurt. Her eyes flickered, suddenly fierce, like an uncontainable storm ready to unleash its fury. How she must have felt a lowly maid, torn between her place and this tumultuous encounter. The taste of fear mixed with urgency filled her senses. Who was she to challenge a Mercer? But that night, she wasn't just a maid anymore. Whispers swept through the crowd, intense as wildfire. Did you see that? Is he insane? The murmurs flitted around the room, wrapping tighter than a noose. The guests shifted uncomfortably, some backing away as if the air itself had turned toxic. Nobody knew what to do next. Such an act was unthinkable in a family known for its charm and elegance. The news would fly faster than wildfire. Would they cover it up? Would someone pay the price? Then, a sudden hush fell. Grace's expression transformed from shock to something inexplicably quiet and powerful. She clenched her fists, the shock on her face replaced by a hardened resolve. "You think this is over?" she said, her voice steady and clear, slicing through the whispers like a knife. "You have no idea what you've done." A shiver ran down everyone's spine. They felt it. Something was about to crack open. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The tension hung like fog, thick and swirling. Julian's face drained of color, the laughter around him faded into a distant memory. He blinked in confusion, heartbeat racing. One careless bite had sparked a fierce fire in Grace, one that no one in that room could tame. But as she took a step closer, raising her chin defiantly, whispers turned into anxious fidgeting. The questions bubbled just below the surface, waiting to explode. What exactly was she planning? Could a mere maid bring down a family built on darkness? The crowd instinctively leaned forward, fear and intrigue palpable. Whatever happened next would linger in their minds, a haunting memory clawing at their thoughts. As Julian struggled to respond, the air crackled with electricity. The night was far from over. Something dark and unexplainable was brewing beneath the surface. What would Grace unleash? Would the Mercers ever recover from this traumatic night? What secrets would rise from the ashes of this shocking confrontation? The flickering chandelier cast a dim light over the faces in the room, each shadow speaking volumes of fear and suspicion. The air crackled around them, as if even the universe sensed that a bomb was about to explode. Julian stood frozen, his usual charm shattered, replaced by a glaze of irritation and regret. Grace advanced a step, eyes ablaze. "You have no idea who I really am," she declared, her voice ringing through the expansive space. The guests shifted, uncertainty settling in their stomachs like a stone. They had come to witness the high life, but now they were tuned into a reality show of madness and raw emotion, among the crowd, Camilla, Julian's closest friend, dared to break the silence. "Grace, please, let us not escalate this. You're overreacting," she pleaded, hope trailing off into fear. But Grace was no longer the obedient maid, she was the storm clouds that rolled in before the downpour. "I'm done being invisible," Grace shot back, her resolve soaring as high as the ceilings in the mansion. "You think your money protects you? You have no idea how much this world has underestimated me." Julian opened his mouth, words dangling on the tip of his tongue, but nothing came out. A surge of adrenaline throbbed through Grace's veins. What did it matter if he was a mercer? What had all those years of submission earned her? A bite from a fool? No, it was time to unleash what had long been simmering beneath the surface of her life. The crowd dusted with anxiety, murmurs rippled through them. "Is she serious?" One guest whispered, and another muttered, "This could ruin everything." Nervous laughter tried to break the tension, but it only deepened their collective discomfort. Then, as if connected by a dark thread, eyes turned toward the ornate fireplace that dominated the far wall. Shadows twisted around the flickering flames, echoes of the Mercer family crest carved into the age-worn stone. Was this mansion, full of grandeur and pride, our witness, or merely a tomb for their secrets? With every passing second, the energies shifted, warping the opulence into something sinister. With a sudden movement, Julian charged, attempting to brush past Grace. "You're a nobody." He spat, but before he could reach the door, a soft voice from behind rang out. "Don't fool yourselves," it said, steady like steel. It was Eloise, the Mercer matriarch, stepping out from the corner where she had observed the chaos unfold. Her gaze was sharp, seizing their attention. "You have no idea what a nobody can do when pushed to the edge." The room fell silent again, as everyone processed her words. Eloise's presence loomed larger than life, a reminder of a lineage cloaked in shadows. Grace felt a swell of courage. She wasn't just speaking against Julian, she was challenging the entire Mercer legacy. "I know things, Julian," she began again, her voice no longer trembling but full of an unexpected weight. "Things that could turn this family upside down. I have the power to expose all your secrets." Julian stared, the color draining from his face again. Panic flickered in his eyes. "What are you saying?" He whispered, but the invite was clear, a challenge no one could ignore. As tensions flared thick, the crowd hung on her every word, a collective breath held. A sudden crash echoed from the back of the room, drawing everyone's attention. A dark figure emerged from the shadows, revealing a startling truth that would change everything. "Looks like someone is finally willing to listen," the figure growled, drawing gasps from the crowd. What did they know? What did Grace just start? All eyes darted back to her, anticipating the storm she would unleash next. The night was descending into a whirlwind of revelations, and with that, secrets were waiting to unravel. Would they destroy the Mercers? Or would they bring Grace to the edge of her own demise? The air shimmered with uncertainty, and a new tension mounted. What lay ahead for the maid who dared to confront the dynasty? More than just a bite, it wasn't just about revenge anymore. Grace had opened a door that no one, not even herself, could predict where it would lead. The shadows thickened as the figure stepped fully into the dim light. The crowd gasped once more, eyes widening in disbelief. The newcomer was none other than Marcus, Julian's estranged brother, long thought to be lost to the edges of the Mercer family's tumultuous history. "Why are you here?" Julian's voice trembled, words hardly comprehensible as the weight of his brother's presence hit the room like a thunderclap. The dislike between the brothers was palpable, an electric tension that turned even the air in the room cold. "Family reunion?" Marcus replied, a smirk twisting across his lips. There was a menace underneath his playful sarcasm. "I wouldn't miss this circus for the world." Everyone shifted, suddenly more interested in the brotherly feud than the unfolding drama with Grace. Hadn't Julian always been the beloved son, the golden child? What did Marcus want? Their bickering felt like a pendulum, swinging between nostalgia and rivalry. "Why now, Marcus?" Julian repeated, desperation creeping into his voice. "You're not supposed to be here." "Not supposed to?" Marcus laughed, dark and mirthless. "Tell me, did you really think the truth wouldn't catch up with you? Mother's secrets are still echoing through this mansion. All it takes is a little push." He glanced at Grace, and his tones shifted, becoming more probing. "Looks like you found a worthy ally, brother." The audience watched, entranced. Grace could feel the two brothers' conflict breathing life into her own resolve. She stepped forward, her heart pounding yet suddenly emboldened. "What secrets are you talking about?" she demanded, her voice steady yet incisive, cutting through the fraught atmosphere like a knife. Eloise's gaze shifted uneasily between her sons, her usual steel-toned control now wavering, exposing just a hint of vulnerability. "Enough!" she snapped, raising her hand. The command rang through the air, silencing the murmurs. But even her authority felt diminished against the revelations unfolding. Marcus rolled his eyes. "Enough? That's rich coming from you, mother. You know as well as I do that reality has a strange way of worming its way to the surface. Isn't that right, Grace?" His words dripped with sarcasm and a twisted sense of camaraderie toward her. He seemed to revel in the chaos just as much as Grace had. "I don't know what you think you know," Grace replied, her confidence fragile but growing. "But any more games, and I will bring the whole family down." Julian's face hardened. "You don't know what you're messing with. This is not a game." "Then let us play," Marcus said defiantly, stepping closer to Grace, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "What if I told you that I know things about this family that even you don't? Secrets that would make even the opulence of this mansion turn to ashes?" The crowd held their breaths, anticipation rippling through them like an electric current. Grace's pulse quickened. What was he offering? Could he really hold the key to the truth she sought? "What are you talking about?" Grace asked, heart pounding, her voice barely above a whisper. She could feel all eyes drawn to her, the weight of countless possibilities pressing down. "Follow me, and I'll show you everything," he beckoned, his gaze penetrating. "But you have to be ready for the fallout." Grace's mind raced. What would she discover? Was it worth the risk? But deep down, she felt the pull of destiny, a fiery urge to unravel the Mercer legacy once and for all. With a glance at Julian and a lingering eye on Eloise, she sensed the game was getting far bigger than she had anticipated. The time to make her choice loomed ahead, heavy and dangerous. As Grace stepped forward, ready to take the fateful plunge into the depths of Mercer secrets, the chandelier overhead flickered violently, casting ominous shadows across the room. What would she find on the other side of that door Marcus dared her to open? Would it be freedom or a nightmare straight from the darkest corners of their past? The stakes were rising, and chaos beckoned, leaving the crowd and Grace on edge. The night had just begun to unfold. As Grace stepped closer to Marcus, the atmosphere thickened like fog rolling over the ground, wrapping the guests in suffocating uncertainty. The murmurs of the onlookers swirled around her, a cacophony of shocks and whispers. "Is he serious?" someone muttered. "What could he possibly offer?" echoed another voice. "Trust me, you'll want to know," Marcus said, grinning like a cat that caught sight of its next meal. He gestured for her to follow, moving toward a shadowy corridor that twisted deeper into the mansion, further away from the glittering crowd. With each step, Grace's heartbeat crescendoed, a drum signaling both danger and desire. Julian called out, a plea laced with panic. "Grace, don't. You don't know what you're getting into." His urgency tugged at her. She hesitated, glancing back at him. Extreme concern etched into his face, twisted with a desperation she had never seen before. With Marcus's gaze locked on her, the choice hung in the air, a tangible thing that felt heavy and charged. "The truth won't wait forever," Marcus taunted, his voice a velvet whisper tainted with challenge. Steeling herself, she took a breath, one that felt like a weight being pulled into her core. "I'm coming," she declared, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. As they entered the darkness, the door behind them muted the noise of the party. The dim lighting revealed an old library, filled with dust and shadows. The architecture loomed like a cage, trapping the secrets of the Mercer lineage within its walls. Why was this room hidden? Grace asked, her eyes scanning the walls lined with faded portraits of stern-faced ancestors. "Because the truth is never pretty," Marcus said, stepping deeper into the room. A fireplace sat dormant in the far corner, and the air was thick with stale secrets. It cracked under his weight as he positioned himself beside a large old chest. "This box may hold more than just memories. It holds the weight of our mother's past." "What do you mean?" "Open it and find out," he urged, his voice low and steady. She approached the chest, its dark wood worn and polished from years of neglect. The latch was cold against her palm, and as she pulled it open, a wave of dust billowed out like spirits escaping their chains. Inside, stacks of yellowing papers spilled forth a jumble of letters, photographs, and clippings that smelled of mildew and time. As she sifted through the contents, Grace's eyes widened in horror. With each letter she unfolded, an intricate web of old scandals and broken promises unraveled before her. There were notes written in shaky script about betrayals, cover-ups, and names she recognized from her time with Julian. "Marcus, what is this?" she stammered, a wave of nausea washing over her as the weight of the revelations pressed down. "The real Mercer legacy," Marcus replied, a dark satisfaction gleaming in his eyes. "Are you ready to face what you might learn about the man you love?" But before Grace could respond, a loud crash echoed through the mansion, sending tremors through the ground. The lights flickered ominously above, and the door slammed shut. Panic exploded in her chest. "What was that?" "Family business," Marcus said, a sinister satisfaction curling his lips. "You've opened a door that can't be closed. Are you ready to step into the chaos?" The unexpected realization that they were no longer just listeners in this twisted tale pierced through her. This wasn't just about secrets, it was a battle for survival and a reckoning of the past. As shadows danced around them like specters, Grace felt the floor shift beneath her. Beneath every truth she was on the verge of uncovering lay deeper horrors yet unexamined. What more would she learn about the Mercers that would change everything? And who or what was lurking behind those unfamiliar shadows? The answers loomed, beckoning her deeper into their world, where every secret might come with a deadly consequence. A deafening silence enveloped the library as Grace's mind raced. What did Marcus mean by family business? Every nerve ending felt on fire, as she acutely sensed the darkness closing in around them. Julian's warning echoed in her mind, swirling with the unease coursing through her veins. A rumble from deep within the mansion reverberated as if the very walls were groaning in protest. "What is happening?" she gasped, clutching the chest for support. The letters fluttered, whispering their secrets as if they too were trying to escape. Marcus stepped back, a glint of something almost manic glimmering in his blue eyes. "This is just the beginning, Grace. The Mercers have a way of protecting their own. And the truth? It's like an infected wound you can't ignore. Protecting their own?" She spat, her voice trembling as she processed the implications. "By what? Silencing them? These letters, they can't be ignored." As she continued to sift through the contents, her fingers brushed against something thicker. Pulling out a stack of photographs, Grace's breath caught in her throat. They were images of Julian, a little boy dressed in nice clothes, smiling, with a mother who looked delighted beside him. Her heart pounded louder as she flipped through to another photo, this one dark and grainy from age. What she saw made her stomach churn. It was Julian again, but this time in an ominous background, whispers of shadows looming behind him. The faces were unfamiliar, their eyes reflecting a chilling disdain as they looked down at the boy. Were they strangers or family? Grace felt a pressure building in her throat. "Marcus, what have you done?" He leaned closer, the tension increasing in the cramped space. "I didn't do anything, I only revealed it." You don't understand the depth of the Mercer legacy. Secrets are what keep the family alive, and those who threaten to expose them, they're never seen again. A louder crash jolted Grace, and the lights flickered erratically, casting maniacal shadows that twisted across the library walls. Panic settled in her chest like a stone. We need to get out of here. But Marcus remained unmoved, standing resolute and smug. This is your chance, Grace. You're at the crossroads. You can dig deeper, or you can follow the path of ignorance like the rest. But no, ignorance may be your only protection. Grace's thoughts raced. Could she really trust him? Julian's warning played on a loop in her mind, and instinctively, she shifted closer to the doorway. But when she laid her hand on the latch, it wouldn't budge. It felt like a cruel joke designed to keep her trapped. Marcus! What did you do? A wave of desperation surged as she yanked at the handle. The door remained unyielding, and she turned to face Marcus, a storm of fear and fury brewing in her chest. No turning back now, he said with a chilling calm, reveling in her turmoil. We're in this together. He gestured to the papers, and her eyes darted back to the chaotic scattering of words. Those are your keys, Grace. Keys to understanding everything about Julian and the Mercers. But with each piece you uncover, you might find something more sinister than you expected. A low whisper crept through the corners of the room like a breath of old, crumbling secrets echoing. Something was stirring in the shadows behind Marcus, a deep unearthly groan. Grace's heartbeat thundered in her ears. We don't have time for this. We need to go. But before she could act, another crash rang out, a shattering sound that made the very foundations tremble. The walls seemed to lean in, as a low rumble grew louder, wrapping them in a clenching darkness. What are you hiding? Grace shouted, furious and terrified, searching Marcus's face for any shred of humanity. He stood unfazed, his smile widening, eyes gleaming with secrets yet untold. Through the chaos, everything seemed to blur. What awaited them next? What dreadful truth lay waiting, hidden in the very fabric of the Mercer family, and was there any way out, or had they just awoken something that had long been buried? Grace could feel the air growing thick around them, as though the mansion itself held its breath, waiting. The photos slipped from her trembling hands, scattering across the floor like fallen leaves. Each image a fragment of a story she had never been told, and now she was trapped in the web of that very tale. Let us just think for a second, Marcus. She shouted, desperation tightening her throat. We can't just stand here in a crumbling mausoleum waiting for the answers to come. He chuckled darkly, his gaze fixed on something just beyond her shoulder. You're smart, Grace. But sometimes thinking gets you killed. This place, he let his voice trail off, a knowing smile creeping onto his face. It's alive. It can hear us. Another crash racked the room, this time closer, like the snapping of dry twigs underfoot in a forest. She whipped around, heart racing. The shadows felt thicker now, slithering and shifting against the bookshelves as a low moan resonated through the air, almost in reply to Marcus. Listen, Grace pleaded, trying to reach him. Right now, we need a plan. You talk about protecting family, but this is more than being protective. This is about survival, he interrupted harshly. Look around you. They'll do anything to protect their secrets. Anything. The ground felt unsteady beneath her, as if the floorboards were inspired by Marcus's words, swaying ever so slightly with an unnatural cadence. Each sound pulsed with malice, echoing off the high ceiling and twisting back on themselves. She gripped the edge of a nearby desk, fingers sinking into the polished wood as if it were her only anchor. Marcus. Julian is in danger. We've got to find him. This legacy you cling to is tearing families apart. He stared at her, a flicker of something guilt passed over his features. You think family is about love and warmth? No, Grace. Family is fear. It's control. Don't you see? The Mercers don't care for the weak. Before she could respond, a final, ear-splitting crash erupted from the opposite end of the library, driving her instincts into overdrive. Something huge and dark squeezed through the doorway like a malevolent fog. Every instinct in her body screamed to run. Run! She shouted, but Marcus stood rooted, studying the encroaching darkness with a strange gleefulness. You can't fight it, Grace. It's part of you now. A shadow lunged toward them, a mass of chaotic energy that surged and contracted. In that moment, fear turned into anger within her. I won't let you drag me down with your secrets. She lunged for the door, her heart pounding in rhythm with the heady racing after her, but again it resisted her touch. The latch felt like it was fused to the old wood as if it laughed at her plight. Why won't it open? The figure swelled, wrapping around her like ivy, feeding on her terror. Marcus seemed entranced, elevated by the chaos unfolding. What are you waiting for? He whispered, a strange fire igniting in his eyes. Embrace it. No. No more. This wasn't just about her. Julian needed her. With a new resolve coursing through her, Grace pushed back against the oppressive mass, shoving her palms outward in defiance. Julian, I'm coming for you. As if rebelling against her fervor, the shadow surged, aiming to drag her down into its depths. But in that moment, she heard a voice, a faint echo, distant yet clear. Grace! Help me! It was Julian. Without a second thought, she spun back to Marcus, her presence igniting a spark. If you want to play the game, then let us change the rules. Suddenly, the library shifted. The shadows recoiled, momentarily ceasing their advance. What did you just do? Marcus asked, surprise flickering across his face. Grace's heart raced with bravado as a flicker of hope ignited in her eyes. I just opened a new door. But whether that door led to salvation or doom remained to be seen, and in a matter of moments, they realized something ancient and wrathful was stirring in the mansion, awakened by their defiance. Then came the screeching roar, echoing up through the very bones of the house, promising darkness to come. What other horrors awaited them now that they had unleashed the family's malignant secrets? The shadows twisted, contorting into grotesque shapes as the roar faded, leaving a haunting silence hanging in the air. Grace's breath quickened. She was on the brink of something dreadful, teetering between the dark unknown and the hope of rescue. Marcus's face had paled, a stark contrast to the fervor he'd just exhibited. That shouldn't happen, he muttered, his gaze darting toward the corners of the room like prey sensing a predator. Don't just stand there. Grace snapped, her own panic morphing into urgency. We need to move. And where exactly would you suggest we go? He shot back, the edge in his voice unmistakable. To where it's safer. The mansion is alive. There's nowhere to hide. Just then, like a whisper carried on a cruel wind, they heard it, a series of low thuds, like footsteps, rhythmic and deliberate. Each beat shuddered the air. Grace gripped Marcus's arm, trying to pull him towards the door. Come on. We can't stay here. But he resisted, eyes wide as he peered into the murky perimeter of the room. No. It's not just footsteps. It's a heartbeat. She felt cold dread settle in her bones as she closely examined his expression. It was a mixture of fear and something darker, something that made her question if he truly understood what they were up against. Before she could ask, the shadows thickened, swirling like a storm that gathered on the horizon. Her pulse thundered in her ears. She found herself stepping forward, visualizing a path through the chaos. We can't stay paralyzed, Marcus. We have to push through. He opened his mouth, probably to protest, but the earth trembled beneath them, the foundations of the mansion protesting like a living entity. Then, a sliver of light sliced through the dark, illuminating an archway she hadn't noticed before. It beckoned her with a warm glow. Look! There! She urged Marcus forward, guiding him towards that beacon. We need to get to Julian. Whatever's happening is connected to him, I can feel it. As they rushed toward the archway, the shadows sparked with alarm, writhing violently as if they understood what she intended. The unspeakable roar returned, shaking the very walls, but her focus remained fixated on the light, a chance at salvation or escape. "Grace! Wait!" Marcus's voice cut through her fervor. "What now?" She turned, agitated, heart racing. "Those are not just shadows. They're memories, forgotten and repressed. They feed on fear, and they're drawn towards you," he said, his voice rising above the din. "We can't just walk into their domain." With each passing second, the allure of the light seemed to dim, swallowed by the escalating chaos circling them. Sweat pooled at her temples as she struggled to keep her mind sharp against the turmoil. "You've known more than you've shared, Marcus. If this triggers some memory, then let us face it together. I can handle this." But as she stepped closer, the shadows twisted, forming anguished faces, mouths open in silent screams, reaching desperately towards them. The sight sent an icy finger of terror down her spine. This wasn't just a fight for escape. This was a confrontation with something unfathomable. "In here, together." Marcus pressed, as he took a deep breath, the resolve tightening his jaw. "Then let us find Julian and banish what haunts this place." Grace nodded, heart pounding with renewed determination. She shifted back towards the archway, the pulsating shadows clawing at her ankles, beckoning her to succumb to the fear. Then came a whisper, soft yet insistent, "Grace, help me." Julian's voice again cut through the darkness, rekindling her drive. She dove into the light with Marcus close behind, the shadows howling in protest. The moment they stepped through, the world shifted, light and darkness crashed into each other, a tempest of emotions that threatened to tear them apart. What awaited them on the other side? Were they marching straight into the jaws of madness, or was this the path toward redemption? The answering roar from the house sent a chill down her back. The reckoning was far from over, and the mansion may not let them go so easily. As they stumbled into the strange glow, Grace's heart raced for what lay ahead, knowing one truth: the truth she'd been seeking could hold the key to saving both herself and Julian. But would she be ready to face it? The light swallowed them whole, blurring the line between safety and despair. In an instant, the oppressive weight of the shadows faded, replaced by a stark chill air that prickled her skin. Grace blinked, trying to accustom her eyes to the new reality, but confusion settled quickly. They stood in a vast cavernous space, the walls solid and unyielding, carved from dark stone that glimmered ominously. Faint echoes murmured like distant memories searching for recognition. "Where are we?" Marcus whispered, his voice trembling with uncertainty. "Julian." Grace called out, her voice firm yet shaky, resonating against the cold stone walls. The only reply was silence, thick and heavy like an unshed tear. She took a step forward, the crunch of gravel sounding deafening in the stillness. Shadows lingered along the edges of the space, curling away from them. It felt alive, throbbing with a presence that was both soothing and terrifying. "This place, it's familiar," Grace murmured, the haunting echo of years gone by washing over her. As she stepped deeper, images flickered before her eyes, fragments of laughter, whispers of joy, then morphing into screams and agonized cries. Her heart raced as she clutched her head, trying to drown out the cacophony of sensations battling for her attention. "I know this. I've been here before." "What? When?" Marcus pressed, looking increasingly fraught as he scanned their surroundings like a man cornered by beasts. "I don't know." She snapped, frustration bubbling up. The memories were there, just out of reach, teasing her mind like a cruel joke. "But Julian, I swear he is here. We need to find him." As she turned, a gust of wind swept through the cavern, stirring the shadows. They flickered like candlelight, revealing a winding path further into the darkness. "This way," Grace urged, adrenaline surging through her veins. With hesitant steps, they moved forward, the air growing heavier with each footfall. And then, down the path, the shadows began to coalesce into shapes, figures cloaked in darkness, their forms twisting and flickering in and out of existence. The sight froze Grace in her tracks. "Are those people?" Marcus stammered, stepping back, eyes wide with terror. They were faces. Familiar faces. Grace's breath caught in her throat as the shadowy figures surged closer, their eyes glinting with recognition. They were people she had known, friends from the past, wicked grins twisted into expressions of sorrow and remorse. "Help us, don't let them take you," echoed voices whispered in unison, a haunting chorus of despair. Without thinking, Grace reached out, fingers brushing against a shadowy hand. The moment she made contact, a surge of energy coursed through her body. She felt warm and filled with hope, but also a chilling dread. The memories surged back with clarity, scenes of betrayal, laughter turned to cries, shattered trust. "No, no, no!" Grace cried, shaking her head as the truth crashed down on her. "This is a trap." Marcus grabbed her arm, pulling her back just as the shadows lunged, their ghastly smiles revealing rows of jagged teeth. "We have to get out of here." Desperation clawed at her throat, but the shadows seemed to swell with their fear, feeding off it, morphing into grotesque versions of their former selves. The figures lunged forward, shrieking, dragging her backward into a whirlpool of memories threatening to drown her. "What happened here, Grace? What's south this place?" Marcus yelled amid the chaos. "I don't know, but we can't let them take us," she shouted back, determination sparking in her chest as she felt Julian's presence tugging at her heart. As the shadows closed in, the light behind them dimmed, swallowing their escape route. Panic ignited in her gut. "We have to find Julian before it's too late." With a resolute scream, she yanked Marcus along, desperate to push past the swirling darkness. They stumbled through the shadows, grasping for any semblance of hope while memories clawed at their minds. Each step forward felt like a battle, the shadows howling in rage at their defiance, but Grace couldn't give in. Not now, not ever. Then silence descended. All at once, everything stilled. The shadows paused, recoiling as a distant, anguished cry echoed through the darkness. "Help me!" Julian's voice. It resonated through her, a piercing beacon cutting through the chaos. "Grace! We have to go back!" Marcus shouted, but she was already moving toward the sound, heart racing, hope ignited. But as she reached for the light ahead, the shadows reacted violently, swirling around her in a tempest. What awaited them on the other side? Would Julian be the key to unraveling this nightmare, or was it a different type of truth waiting to be uncovered, one they might not be prepared to face? The shadowy forms surged, and all at once, the room erupted with a cacophony of wails. The battle for their souls had just begun. Grace surged forward, her heart pounding, desperate to reach the source of that voice. "Julian!" She called out, the echo of his name mingling with the whispers of the shadows. She felt Marcus clutching her arm, pulling back, but the urgency surging through her was undeniable. "No! We have to go this way," she insisted, cutting through the vast, empty void of silence. The shadows recoiled slightly, as if they understood her determination, the hesitation momentarily allowing a glimpse of what lay ahead, flickers of warmth, the golden light of safety mingling with the darkness. With each step, the shadows writhed, mocking her hope, their long fingers stretching toward her, brushing against her skin like icy tendrils. An unspeakable dread filled the air, heavy and choking. But with Julian's voice urging her on, she couldn't falter. Suddenly, a furrowed figure emerged from the swirling mass. It was a woman, her face a nightmarish puzzle of familiar features twisted in distress. "You mustn't go any further. They will take you, too." Grace's breath hitched. "Who are you?" "I'm someone who tried to save him," the woman gasped, her voice trembling like fragile glass. "I thought I could bring him back, but I was a fool." "No!" shouted Marcus, his expression twisted by confusion. "Don't listen to her. This is a trap. Julian is just ahead. If we're quick, we can help him." Grace insisted, heart hammering. She was torn. This woman's sorrowful eyes held something truth, perhaps. But time was slipping away, and Julian was calling her. Ignoring Marcus's protests, Grace pressed on. She moved around the woman, and with each stride, the shadows grew more violent, pulsating with anger as if she had just unleashed a chained beast. They surged forward like a wave, dark claws reaching, grazing her arms, pulling her back as if trying to drown her in despair. "Stop!" Grace yelled, battling against them, but the noise of the wailing figures filled her ears, threatening to tear apart her sanity. They screamed for help, their faces pleading. "Don't succumb to them. They feed on your fear." The woman shouted, her voice strained. A moment of clarity pierced through the chaos. Grace remembered the warmth she had felt when she'd reached out to the shadows before, just a spark of it amidst the cold shadows. "Marcus!" She cried out, drawing strength from him, "We can't listen to them. We have to find Julian." They forged onward, arms linked, moving as one against the darkness that howled around them, determined to reach the echo of his voice. But the cavern widened as they approached, and with each step, the air grew heavy, a suffocating weight that pressed down on them. Suddenly, the shadows thickened into a wall, a grotesque tapestry of contorted faces screaming silently in anguish. "He is beyond here. Turn back." The voices warned in frenzied synchronization, echoing off the stone. Panic seized Grace's chest. Julian was close, but this barricade wanted to separate them forever. "Get back!" she shouted, gathering every ounce of her defiance. She charged forward, Marcus at her side, the two of them pushing against the tide, determined not to let fear dictate their fate. Just as they were about to break through, the wall of shadows elongated and grabbed at their clothes, wrapping around their limbs. "Let go!" Grace screamed, wrenching her arm free, adrenaline flooding her veins. The moment she broke away, the shadows withdrew momentarily, whispering in a tumultuous frenzy. With one last burst of strength, Grace sprinted ahead, her heart pounding with sheer resolve. In front of her, a shimmering light broke through the chaos. She could feel Julian's presence pulling at her. "Julian!" she yelled, out of breath but fueled by desperation. Then the walls of shadows surged back, screaming in outrage as they clawed at her, determined to drag her into their void. As she reached the light, she felt something warm flicker against her fingertips. And then, just as she was about to break through, she felt a sharp pain rip through her arm. The shadows yanked her back forcefully, their chilling grip tighter than before. "No!" Marcus shouted in horror, reaching for her. "Let me go!" Grace cried, torn between the warmth of the light and the icy grasp of terror, but as the shadows tightened their hold, she turned to face Marcus, her eyes a mix of fear and resolve. "You have to find him. You have to." The last thing she saw before being pulled away was the light, shimmering just out of reach, and Marcus, desperately trying to break through the shadows to save her. A piercing scream echoed as the shadows grew silent, and the cavern plunged into an unsettling stillness. Was this the moment they feared? Were they finally lost, or was there still hope lurking within the darkness? As the echoes faded, one question remained: had Grace made the ultimate sacrifice for Julian, or had she sealed their fate in the pursuit of salvation? Grace felt the darkness close in, wrapping around her like a shroud. Panic surged as the icy fingers dug deeper into her skin, pulling her away from the shimmering light that held Julian. But within that suffocating grasp, a flicker of defiance ignited. She gasped, fighting against the shadows that snarled madly around her. "I want to let you take me," she exclaimed, voice trembling with resolve. As the shadows coiled tighter, the memories surged again. Faces swirled in her mind, Julian's innocent grin, the warmth of stolen moments filled with laughter, the crushing weight of despair when he was lost to his own demons. She could not forget. With a surge of strength she didn't know she had, Grace yanked her arm free from the shadow's clutches, feeling a surge of warmth flickering from her heart as she broke free momentarily. "I'm coming for you, Julian," she yelled, her spirit igniting anew, not wanting to give in to despair. The shadows howled in rage, their grotesque forms twisting around Marcus. "You must listen. You cannot break the chains that bind them." A voice screamed, but Marcus shook his head. "Stay with me. We're stronger together." Tears in her eyes, refusing to surrender, Grace fought through the chaos, struggling against the shadow's relentless pull. "Marcus! Don't stop. We have to find him," she shouted, rallying her courage, urging him to follow. He turned back with determination etched on his face, grasping at the shadows that clawed at their heels. "I'm right here with you." He stepped forward, and together they surged towards the light, hands locked to anchor one another amidst the chaos. But it wasn't enough. The shadows lunged, relentless, howling with anguish, their baleful shrieks echoing against the cavernous walls. They began to close around Grace again, flickering, trying to envelop her in their cold embrace. In that instant of concentrated panic, she felt defeat creeping in, like a film of ice gathering on a windowpane. But something pulled within her, a thread of joyous memories flickering brightly, igniting her soul. "Julian!" She screamed one last time, passion pouring from her like fire, and the shadows froze, halting their advance with an unexpected tear, like a sudden gust of wind through a closed window. Grace could feel the pull of the light wrapping around her more strongly now, as memories flooded her mind, gifts from moments once thought forgotten. She saw herself laughing with Julian, joy spilling between them like sunlight. She felt the warmth of their shared secrets, the tiny moments sparking with affection that grounded them both. Each memory breathed life into her bones, lighting a path through the oppressive force of despair. "I will not lose him." In that moment, the shadows recoiled as she harnessed the warmth of her love, pushing back against the dark entities that fed on chaos. "You have no power over me," she cried, and the shadows shrieked as if her voice was a direct challenge. Brilliant light flooded around her like an explosion, consuming their dark forms. Then, like a bridge breaking free from the waves, she surged forward into the light, pulling Marcus with her into its radiant embrace. The shadows writhed in anguish, swallowed by the brightness as the tendrils of darkness began to dissolve. The next moment the world shifted again. Grace blinked, adjusting as she blinked away the haze. They stumbled forward into the light, and then there he was, Julian, lying unconscious on the floor of the library. "No!" Marcus gasped, and just like that, their connection sparked anew, urgency igniting the air. They rushed to him, and Grace knelt beside Julian, heart racing. She felt his clammy skin beneath her fingers, and in that moment, nothing else existed. Not the shadows, not the chaos. Just him. "Julian, please." She cradled his face, desperation tightening her grip. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she felt herself begin to break, emotions swirling around her. "Come back to me. You can't leave me like this." It felt as if the universe had paused. She held her breath, praying, willing him to awaken. Suddenly, his eyelids fluttered, the ghost of breath escaping from him, and then he gasped. "Grace!" His voice cracked like a dawn breaking. He blinked, confusion washing over him as he stared at her. What happened? She let out a breath she didn't know she was holding, relief flooding over her like a wave crashing onto a shore. "You're safe now. We're safe." But behind them, the dark whispers of the shadows loomed uneasily in the corners of the room, restless and agitated. She felt a shiver, turning back to see flecks of chaos still swirling outside the fringes. "They're not gone," Marcus warned, gripping her arm tightly. "Not completely." But Grace shook her head, her heart pounding, no longer overwhelmed. "They only have power as long as we give it to them. Together, we can fight them. We've done it once." She took Julian's hand, intertwined fingers, and felt the warmth return to her soul. The shadows began to retreat, disoriented by their unity. The light that surrounded them brightened, fading the darkness away. This was the spark to illumination, they were no longer alone. One last surge emanated through the room, brighter than the sun, washing over every inch, pushing the shadows into corners until only a dim murmur remained, struggling beneath their bravery. With resolute strength, Grace stood. "Let us reclaim our lives," she declared, strength resonating through every word as they moved forward together. Facing the unknown seemed a little less daunting with those they cherished by their side. As they stepped into the light, hand in hand, Grace felt her fears retreat, whispered echoes of love replacing the shadows that once gripped her heart. And from that moment, they remade their lives, each day a battle anew. No longer insignificant, no longer forgotten. Threads of their existence intertwined with light and truth, powerful enough to banish shadows and build a future unchained from the past. They had confronted darkness together. Now they held the light, and it would guide their way home. Now, dear friends, we stand at the end of a chapter. What a ride it's been. If you enjoyed this story, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that are waiting for you. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us grow this community. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about what just happened. Your voice matters. Let us keep this conversation going, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Together, we're unstoppable.